And if we focus on those things and write about them, then it gives people permission to feel that emotion and live out that emotion, which is very healing. Because you're not missing, you're just suppressing it. You know, that's what I mean. They're trying to avoid those emotions and avoid those feelings. Oh, I'm sad. I don't want to be sad. Well, be sad for a moment. You know, it's okay to feel all of those emotions. And like you say, in my songs, I try to spoon feed the hard stuff with some what they call gallows humor, to make you laugh in the middle of crying and have that mixture of emotions, so that you're always bouncing from one thing to the next. I don't want to leave people stuck in the ditch.
Yeah.
If I bring them down there, down to a deep emotion, I want to be able to lift them back up out of there, because that's the whole point of healing. Hello.
This is a Live Again podcast where attorneys and other professionals meet to discuss real life challenges and the decisions that we all make that shape our journeys. Because being alive is not only about existing, it is about the purpose and the meaning that we bring to our daily lives. Today, we have with us a special guest, I would say, a person that fits perfectly with the name of the podcast, Steve Schalchlin. I hope I pronounced your name right.
You got it. It's spelled like somebody put a bunch of letters and just threw them onto a table.
He's a musician who found his calling after surviving a life-threatening illness. He believes in the healing power of music and has dedicated his life to creating and sharing it. Thank you so much, Steve, for being here today with us. It's a great honor and pleasure to have you.
Well, I'm so happy you asked me. Thank you very much.
And about the ask, I should mention that I first met you 2 years ago, before my book, Alive Again, was published. And I met you at a meeting of our publishing house, and I was truly inspired by your story. And then we met again at the same gathering to about 2 weeks ago. And I realized that you are the perfect person to invite on the show, and I would like to read what you replied.
Okay.
If I may. You said, I was almost shocked when I saw the name of the podcast, because my whole story is about coming back to life. It was literally on my deathbed back in 1996 of HIV. When my name got chosen in the lottery for an experimental drug, and it brought me back to life. That's when I remained my whole life living in the bonus round. This was such an inspired goosebumps. Yes, I mean, Alive Again.
If you watch a game show on TV, they always have the regular part, and then after you win, then you get the bonus round. And in the bonus round, time speeds up and the prizes are better. So I've tried to live this bonus round as doing as much as I possibly can, as quickly as I possibly can, and just trying to get all the presents and the prizes I can get.
Yes, and I believe you do. And I believe that everything happens for a reason, and your purpose in life was to inspire people through your music.
I think so. Once I began to, of course, I didn't know what I was doing. I wrote my first song when I came out of the hospital. And that day I had been for that whole past year, I had been very, very sick. And I had worked myself up by trying to do exercises and walking. And I felt like I got up to about 65% strength. And for the first time in a year, I sat up at the piano. And I began to play music, and I just played furiously all day for a couple of hours. And finally exhausted, I lay down, I went to sleep, I woke up the next day, and all of a sudden my body energy was at 95%. Like overnight, I could feel a measurable difference in the way my body felt only from playing music. So that's when I went, oh, it's not an old wives' tale, as they say, that music is healing. It actually had a measurable effect on me. So then I just started writing song after song after song after song. And each time I was writing about the different emotions that I felt with my disease that I was handling. And I got stronger and stronger. And finally, my partner Jimmy took the songs. We put them into order. He wrote a play around them. And a year later, we were off Broadway with a hit show.
Yeah, this is absolutely amazing. And yeah, it's not just the story of music is healing, but it truly is. And creation in general
Yes.
is healing.
Yes. Whether you're writing a book or you're dancing a dance or you're choreographing or you're writing a book or a play or whatever, I think I've said all those two or three different times, or painting, that act of creation is the most, well, it's the most godly thing you can do because, as I say, that's the first thing God did. So if you believe in God, then you want to be a creator. That's the most godly thing you can do if you think on those terms. And if you think on a secular terms, it energizes yourself from the inside out. Every single one of your cells participates in that journey of creation.
I have another example for you. I'm
Sure.
a fashion designer, and that is what saved me. And actually right now I'm fighting a cold, ironically, and I want so badly to just lay down in bed, but I said
Right.
no. And I've been sitting at the sewing machine all day long, forcing it in myself just to create. And I feel exactly that right now.
Yeah, it fills you up. It fills you up.
Yeah.
It really does. And I envy that. I watch all of the fashion game shows. So
Yeah. So
I envy
Yeah.
that talent.
yeah. You invited us to your next show, which is March 7th,
Yes.
and we reserved the tickets. And
Don't tell Mama. 7 o'clock.
Yes. We'll invite you at her next fashion
Yes.
show.
I love it. Oh my goodness. I've never been to one. I want to do that.
Yes. So you mentioned that you wanted to be an attorney.
Well, see, I was answering your question about whether I would have ever done something else. I was basically saying I'm broke because I'm a songwriter. So maybe my brother, who's an attorney, has done very well for himself. So I thought, well, maybe I should have done that. But I don't know. I don't know if I'd have had the attention span to be able to learn law. To tell you the truth, I think songwriting is about the only thing I know how to do.
Yeah, because you love it. And what they say, if you do what you love, it's all that matters.
I love it. And over the years, I have been approached by hundreds of people who got the same kind of healing energy from listening to the music that I was writing. And I don't write like healing music in the classical sense, like we're going to turn on this healing music now, with trained sounds. I just write songs. And I deal very much with the emotions, the intense emotions that I feel. And those emotions are what most people don't learn to excavate. So music gives them that entree into excavating what's inside of them that they're struggling with. So I think that's why the music for me is very healing and why it touches other people.
Yeah. And I think it's not only the music, it's the words that you put the music
Yes.
on, because they're so authentic and they're literally universal. We all have the same challenges and the same thought pattern. And what you do, you just spill it out in a funny way. And, when people realize that they're not alone in what they're feeling, they feel better.
Yes. Yes, and they feel that connection. It's that aloneness. When people feel alone with their intense emotions, whether sadness or depression. Back in the early days of the internet, when I came on, it was 1996. Not too many people had the internet. I mean, it was brand new. I would go to colleges and universities, and even the students themselves didn't even have email yet. So that's how early in the process I was. And I discovered that most of the people who were online at that time were people who were shut in, who were home, who had suffered either they had illness or depression or some other thing that kept them bedridden. So in the early days of the internet, we kind of formed these little communities of self-help or each other helping each other. And in an earlier generation, they would have just been stuck in a bedroom looking at four walls. So to me, we can make fun of the internet now because it can be so evil, but that social interaction between people who need each other was the thing that drew me there, and we created this entire community of people who found their own bonus rounds through our mutuality of our emotions and the things I excavated in the songs.
Yeah. And tell us about your life empowering newsletter that you do every Tuesday.
Well, it's funny because I started this newsletter. I've done the 24th now, so I'm 24 weeks in a row. So back in the fall of 2024, I decided I was going to start doing this weekly newsletter. And to me, it was just, I was thinking, I got to do something professional, like give myself a deadline so I'm communicating something to somebody. It's very lonely when you're sitting in a studio and you're just writing songs for yourself. Like, how do you make people want to hear them? How do you even get them out there to them? So I thought, all right, I'm going to set myself, I'm going to do a weekly newsletter. And it was just to promote my songs at first, but then it became me telling stories and inspirational stories and people that I met. And also I go out, I think I wrote you too, every Wednesday we play Beatles songs at Strawberry Fields. And people, this is what's really amazing to me. People come from all over the world. I mean, every country, every language, every culture, every continent. And they come to pay tribute to John Lennon there at Strawberry Fields in Central Park. And we'll sit there and play their songs, and everybody knows all the words. So I've been setting up my little camera, and I'm videotaping people singing all the songs along with us and then putting them up on the internet. And people just love.
I've seen it. There was some that went viral a few years ago, no?
I don't know if I've gone viral yet, but we're getting...
I swear I've seen something about someone playing Beatles songs in honor of John Lennon.
Yeah, there are other groups. Yeah, there are other people out there. In fact, we were kind of last in line. We just started this past year, and people have been doing it for years. So yes, It is something that's happened. You probably didn't see one of our videos, but now you can hunt them down.
Yeah.
And
definitely,
it's just so beautiful to watch all these people sharing and singing these songs from all these different countries.
Yes.
I love cutting those together.
What's amazing about, because you didn't give us the most important thing of your Tuesday newsletter, is that you write a new song every week.
I do.
And that's the most wonderful piece of your newsletter, because your creativity inspires people every week. And actually,
that's great.
I posted last week, Valentine's Day week, I received your newsletter with a wonderful song. It was an older song of yours, but
called Going It Alone.
Yes. The words were incredible about how we are all alone in our pain, but then we realize that people that we love also suffer the pain in their own way.
I remember the morning I wrote that song. It was in 1995, and I was sitting there at the typewriter very early. I get up very early in the morning to work. I get up like at 3 or 4 in the morning and just have all those hours to myself. And I was writing this song about how terrible the disease is, and in fact, I had a whole battlefield kind of thing with the virus fighting me and my cells and everything, and it was turning into this whole war scenario. And then I heard my partner Jimmy in the other room kind of turn over in his sleep, and suddenly I thought, I know how bad I feel, but how much worse it is to be watching someone that you love going through a terrible thing, especially if you think they're going to die, which at the time I was absolutely going to die. And then I saw friends of mine who got sick, and I felt so helpless looking on at them and realizing that I can't help. I mean, I can be there, I can say a word, I can hold their hand, but as far as curing them, I can't cure them. And so that's what made me write that song, is as lonely as I feel, as the lyric goes, what about what you're going through? I can't even imagine what you're going through. So together we are going it alone. You know, you're feeling what you're feeling inside yourself. I'm feeling what I'm feeling inside myself. But when we're together, it's a mutuality that really is a healing thing all on its own.
On its own, yeah. Yeah. So these are the songs that Steve writes. The words are healing along with the music, and you have them. And I will have your information linked in the podcast for people to see how you have all your songs separated by categories.
Yes.
Love songs and funny songs and they are really, really. So at this event that we had 2 weeks ago, we were crying and laughing and all because of Steve's songs. I mean, it's
well, I have learned not to step over you, but I have learned
Please.
that if you're going to handle something serious, do it in a funny way, or because that's how we survive. We survive. We get over the worst things by, probably when you were in jail at one point, you went, look at me. How did I get here? And so you turn around and you laugh at yourself and you go, how did I find myself in this situation? And then once you start to laugh at it, you go, okay, now I'm over it. Now I can move on to the next thing. I can fix this. And I love the fact that each in my life, one of the things I did early on is in 1996 when I was dying, I started an online blog, and I started keeping it every single day. It was an online diary. It turned out to be one of the first in the entire world. People started doing these things. But because I was in so early, it became like one of the very first online journals. And it was the very first one that dealt with somebody living with AIDS. And as I was keeping up with this diary, I just found that I could laugh at myself. I could look back at what I was doing. People could relate to what I was doing. In fact, I sort of got off track here. I forgot why I said that. We were talking about starting over. That's what it was. So anyway, at the end of that first summer, we did our first workshop of the last session. And I had just been picked in the lottery. There were only 1,200 people nationwide who were available to get this drug. So I was in this lottery. I was hooked up to an IV being fed at night because my entire digestive system had given up. So I was literally in fact, my mental state at the time was, okay, I'm going to die. I know I'm going to die soon, but I've just written our little musical. We're going to do a little workshop of it so I can at least look forward to that. And I started it myself. I had a wrap around my arm where I would feed myself at night. There was a port entry into my blood. And the drug came several weeks later. We started the workshop. And on the very last week of the workshop, I started to eat again. I started to be able to deal. And I was able to pull out the thing. And that night when we took our bows, I looked at the audience and I said, I think I'm going to live. I think I'm going to live. We don't know because it's just one pill, happening right now, but I think I'm going to live. And then that night I went home to my diary and I wrote end of book 1, start of book 2. And I realized I was segmenting my life in new starts over and over again. All right, I've finished this chapter. Now I'm going to start a new chapter. And I made that I started doing that all the way through. The diary went on for 8 or 9 years. And when I'd get to a stopping point, I'd think, okay, you know what? I think I'm done. Let's start over.
Yeah.
That
was really energizing for me because I felt like, okay, clean slate, next chapter.
Yeah.
And I think we can all do that in our lives, no matter what ditch we think we've driven ourselves into. Maybe at your lowest point, okay, end of chapter 1. People kind of do that sometimes at New Year, right? I'm so glad the year's over. Now I can start over again. I think if we do that in our lives, pretend like our lives is a big book that's being written as you go along and go, okay, next chapter, how can I clean the slate and start over again?
Yeah.
It's good for you.
It is. Yeah. We had a guest last week and we spoke about the fact that every human being at some point in their life, we all fall and get lost in a ditch somewhere.
Yes.
And how do we get out? Some people simply remain there, and others find the courage and power to get out and start over again. And that as you said, with the hope and starting a new chapter every day, we are alive again, basically.
We are alive again. I remember this moment back in that day when I was going to die, and then I didn't die. This was the end of July of 1996. A couple of weeks later, I was just vacuuming the carpet or something, and all of a sudden I started to worry about the national debt. I have no idea why. Just out of nowhere, like a bird flying in, just landing on my head, it was like the national debt. And I thought, why am I worried about, how can I fix the national debt? I'm vacuuming right now. And then I thought, this is what it was like before I was dying. Because when I started to die, my mind cleared up. And I started to just deal with whatever I could handle right there at the moment. And it energized me to not fill my head with a lot of noise and stuff that I can't control. And I thought, all of this is a state of mind. It's a change of mind. What I'm thinking now is just what my brain is doing to fill up the noise, to fill up space. And I could feel the weight of the world descending on my shoulders, and I thought, why is this happening? And how is it different from when I thought I was dying? And they always say, that you should understand that you're going to die, that we have only a small amount of time on this earth. And if we fill it with stress, we're not doing ourselves any favors. We're not actually fixing anything. We give ourselves the illusion that we are, but we're not. So I keep trying to go back to that day and remember what it felt like when I thought I had no time left and just deal with what I can deal with. And it's amazing how clear your mind gets. And you become more productive too.
Yeah. It's interesting how we find ourselves and we find God within us, the Christ consciousness, when we think that that's it. We lost everything and it's the end of the road.
Right.
Why in the world can human beings cannot find it in a normal, regular day?
People begin to pray when they're in a plane crash or something.
God. They remember to pray to God when that's it. It's the end of the road.
Right.
So, yeah, because I've went through, of course, at a different level of losing everything. And I met some other people who are on the same boat, praying for our lives when we lost everything. So it's fantastic, as you said, how clear our mind is when we don't have the noise.
Right.
And I think that your music and your songs touch upon a lot of the human emotions that a lot of people don't understand. Don't understand and don't express.
Well, what I heard one time, and this is definition of a writer or any kind of creator, we spend all of our time focusing on the things that everybody else spends all their time trying to avoid. And if we focus on those things and write about them, then it gives people permission to feel that emotion and live out that emotion, which is very healing, because you're not missing, you're just suppressing it. That's what I mean. They're trying to avoid those emotions and avoid those feelings. Oh, I'm sad. I don't want to be sad. Well, be sad for a moment. It's okay to feel all of those emotions. And like you say, in my songs, I try to spoon feed the hard stuff with some what they call gallows humor. to make you laugh in the middle of crying and have that mixture of emotions so that you're always bouncing from one thing to the next. You don't get, I don't want to leave people stuck in the ditch.
Yeah.
If I bring them down there, down to a deep emotion, I want to be able to lift them back up out of there, because that's the whole point of healing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was, in the most recent Fashion Week, there was a designer who I really love. Gustav Gupta, I believe is his name. His partner survived an accident and she's burned on the majority of her body.
Wow.
And his most recent collection was about the stages of her healing. And
Wow.
the stages, all of his pieces, they were these stunning gowns going through her healing. And it was just so incredible to see. And you really even in something with no words, you just really felt, you felt it. It was incredible.
Well, the most beautiful kind of work, and like you say, it can be fashion designing. Even when I watch like Project Runway and all those things, whenever there's a designer who's really putting their emotional, who they are, into the work. Yeah. It's not just about, is it pretty? Does it lay right? You have to get all those things right too. But it's like, I'm making a statement about my life and about the emotions that I feel and what I'm going through. And then suddenly what would be just a dress takes on this whole new different dimension of richness. So capturing that yourself as a designer, capturing those things. You know, that's what we do as artists.
Right.
Is we try to capture those elusive things and remembering to always point ourselves in the direction of the pain. Because that's where our gold mine is, the direction of the pain. I used to use that as a mantra. I would say, where am I hurting the most? I'm trying to get away from that pain. Naturally, as a human, we try to avoid pain. All right, how do I rip that open and get into that pain so that I can address it, talk about it, sing about it? And then how can I help myself get through it?
And
that's how we become alive again.
Yeah. And I read about your song about your funeral, Save Me a Seat.
Yes.
Things that people don't even want to think about.
Yeah. And at the end of that song, you might remember the very part of that lyric. The whole song, for those who haven't heard, it's called Save Me a Seat. It takes place at my own memorial service, and I'm already dead, right? So I'm laughing at the fact that they have nachos. I'm laughing at the fact that you know, my mom is telling some story, making me all glorified sounding and ridiculous. So in the text of the song, I leave the memorial service, go across the street, and start playing piano in a bar and having a beer. And then at the very end of the song, I come back into the memorial service and I whisper in everybody's ear, you know, take me home with you. And when you feel bad, sit me down at your kitchen table. You know, even though I'm long gone, sit me down at your kitchen table, get a piece of cake or whatever, and let's have a conversation and talk to me. You know, and it served a dual purpose for me when I wrote the song, because I was very, very, very sick. I thought, this is a way I can live forever, is by people remembering me and remembering what we can do together. What would you have said to me if I were still alive? What would I have said to you? You can know these things if you know me. And then the other way is just letting people know that I can always be there. If you want me to be there, I can always be there.
I didn't prepare a box of tissue for me today.
Here, you can borrow mine. Here, I got this for you.
Yeah, I mean...
But that's the kind of songs that I write, though, is I write songs that are deeply emotional. And the song is also funny. If you listen to the whole song, there's also a lot of gallows humor in it, and I'm poking fun of myself, poking fun at the situation, and then I dive in and go for the heart. And I think I try to do that with each one of my songs. You might remember one of the songs I sang, which is now on Spotify. It's called My New York Life.
I sang along with you.
That was the chorus. This is my New York life. So that's another song where I'm just scanning around what happens to me in New York, and then it becomes very sad. I don't know if sad's the right word. It becomes very melancholy, and then I give you a big laugh, and then I make you melody, then give you a big laugh again. So yeah, the words are, you're right, it's not just the music, it is the words.
The word.
And I usually write my lyrics first, and I take a long time over them. I'm a part of a songwriter group that meets every week, and we have to deliver a new song every week anyway, good or bad, halfway done or full all the way done, and then we critique each other. And that's what one of the things that helps me stay disciplined, is staying within a community of songwriters. And that probably extends to the theme of your show. We live, again, because we surround ourselves with people who are like-minded, or who have commonalities, and suddenly it's not just us, but it's us and a group. I think you were mentioning that with the people in the prison, or the people in the literary group. We sit around and talk about the books we've written, talk about our music, whatever we do. That commonality is so much a part of becoming alive again, I believe.
Yes. And through your words, people find themselves.
Right.
I found myself in the glamorous New York life, because I left Romania when I was 22.
Wow.
And I've always dreamt of living in New York and being a New Yorker. So I had this dream even when I was a little girl back in Romania as a communist country, not knowing anything about it.
Right.
So when you started singing my glamorous New York life, I found myself in it.
That's wonderful. I love that.
Yeah, and
I didn't come from a communist country, but it came from a little bitty town in Texas called Buna, Texas. And when I first started and I was the son of a Baptist minister, a very loving family, but a very closed-off culture, that I didn't know the larger world at all. And when I finally, being gay was even worse. If you're a Baptist, it's the worst thing you can be. Aside from a murderer, although I think they prefer murderers to gay people. I finally moved off to Dallas and found my own community in Dallas. And then I got a job in a theater, which I had never been in a theater before. I didn't know what musical theater was. And so they said, some friends of mine said, let's go to New York and go see a show. And I said, show? What are you talking about? Then they said, we'll go to Broadway. And I thought Broadway meant old movies. I literally didn't know Broadway was like a place. So when I found myself with my own musical off Broadway in 1997, I stood there on 47th Street at the 47th Street Theater holding my Playboy in my hand, thinking how far I've come.
Yeah.
And also, I always was a big comic book reader when I was a kid, and all of the superheroes were in New York. So like you, I dreamed of my glamorous New York life too. I wanted to get out of that little town, and I wanted to get to a big city, and I definitely would love to have gone to New York, and so here I am.
Yes. We can't wait for your show.
Yeah.
And also, you made me cry with the song that you dedicated to Jane.
It's called I Only See You Young.
Young. Oh my God.
So I should bring tissues with me on Fridays.
Definitely bring tissues.
Definitely. Yeah, the opening lyric is one of my favorite lyrics I ever wrote. I watch you in the mirror as you trace your worry lines. You think you're not as beautiful as in our youthful times. Well, believe me when I tell you, all those lines you think you see are tissue paper overlay, invisible to me.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I only see you young.
Young. Yeah. I guess we're gonna have another episode, definitely. Now that we've reached the end, and I have many, many questions for you, but we leave it for another episode.
Okay, I would love to do one. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. I have only one question that I ask every guest, and because the show is called Alive Again, the question is, what is one activity in your life that makes you feel more alive?
Well, songwriting, singing. One of the reasons we started doing our Beatles sing-along is because I just didn't. It's a real hassle to book a club and then to get audience members. So I hadn't been doing that, but I wanted to sing so badly. So singing the Beatles songs in Central Park every week makes me feel about more alive than just about anything that I do. I really, really love it. And just being able to sing, it just engages every part of the body and the mind and the spirit. It's incredible.
Yeah. And probably there is no pressure there because, like it's a dance like nobody's watching. The same as you're
Right.
singing, like you don't really.
It doesn't matter. I can get the songs right or wrong. It doesn't matter. There's some Beatles fanatics and purists who show up, and sometimes they'll remind me that I missed a word. I don't care. You come up and sing it. It's just a joyful celebration. I hadn't realized until I started to sing these songs how joyful they all are. They're wonderful sing-along songs, whether it's, I don't know, Obladi, Oblada, life goes on, brah, la, la, how the life goes on. Just there's so many great choruses.
Yeah.
And so that's the one thing I would suppose that makes me happy. The other thing is waking up early. I like to wake up early. I like having several hours in the morning where there's no phones, no TV, no sound, where I can just concentrate. And whether I meditate or whether I'm writing lyrics or whether I'm keeping my journal, whatever I'm doing, I love those early morning hours. That makes me feel really alive too.
Those are great pieces of wisdom for people in this noisy world that we're living right now.
Calming the mind. It's so healthy for you. And you get more done. You think you're getting more done by worrying about stuff, but you don't. I can be aware of things in the world and aware of politics and all that stuff, but I can't take on the stress of thinking that I can fix something.
Okay.
I can't. Donald Trump
Like
does
the
not
national
have my.
debt.
I don't have the president's phone number. If I called, he wouldn't answer, and he wouldn't listen to me anyway. So what would it matter? I can vote, I can do all my civic-minded things, but I'm not going to take on the stress and the worry as an emotion weighing me down. That doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
for talking to us today. I will put in the description all the information for the
Great.
show. And all of your songs for people to listen because they're really, really heartwarming.
Thank you.
Thank you, our listeners, for listening to our great episodes, and please subscribe and follow for more. Thank you so much.
Thank